just so obviously so they don't all fall apart. Now I'm starting with just an ordinary T-pin here, and what I want to do, I want to cut up a little piece of 64th plywood. I fill that in with thin CA because I want to make the little handle like we have on the emergency brake lever. Kind of looking at the drawings, that looks like it repeats itself over and over again. I want to fill in that little area in between with some thin balsa hardened up with CA, and then carve that brake handle. Now I don't want to admit how much time I put into like making a little control handle here. I made up about 7 of these before I found one that I really liked. And most of this stuff is just patience and just copying things that are either from pictures, books. Library is a good source of books, videos. Now once I get a final finish on this, I gotta sand this down. I'll get it sanded. I'm gonna mix up some epoxy with red dye in it, because in the real Spitfire, this handle is red. And this way, the epoxy leaves a final finish in one coat, unlike paint, where you'd see the grain and you'd have to paint it over and over again. And it leaves a texture that looks an awful lot like the plastic. I guess the handles were made out of plastic. I'm assuming they were. Oh boy, if you only knew how long this took to do. My fingers feel like raw meat working on this. Anyway, it has the little look of the emergency brake pull lever. I'm going to mix up the red epoxy now and see if I can make this look even a little more realistic. Now, I had to mix some red and yellow to get this color. I don't think this color is the right color. May have to paint this after I'm done, but this will certainly seal the wood grain. God, making up these little details, believe me, this takes a lot of time. It's very time consuming. But when it's all done and you're looking at little cockpit, now the trick is to hit this with a hairdryer, and that just thins it out and you get all the details back. All our little epoxy and knobs and switches and everything is drying. I only have about an hour left in this day, but I want to trace out. Now see, this is the piece I cut off of the nose, and it's already fiberglass that already has a nice bend in it. So what I want to try to do is lay out the shape of the seat and the bottom part of the seat and interconnect them, and use this as either a pattern, or if it comes out real nice, we can use this actually as part of the seat. That is the shape of the real seat. I mean, let's face it, it wasn't rolled and tucked and pleated, you know what I mean? Oh, I just roughly roughed this out by getting the height. Remember, in a real airplane, the seat would sit much lower in the plane, so you have to kind of fudge this. But this is kind of the shape, just roughly the shape, that you can see in all the books. And so if I just rough this out real quickly, and I can get a look at what this is going to look like. Now this is the curve I want to capture. I want to capture this, I don't know what you would call it. Now obviously the reason this is like this is so the pilot can look back. More visibility. The easiest way I know to make any symmetrical shape, and again I'm doing this by eye, I'm not doing this any real specific shape, but what I want to do is I certainly want to make it symmetrical. And I can take my whole template. This would give us the diameter for the headrest. You could pick some other diameter that you thought by roughing it out. because once I unfold this, it should be, in theory anyway, it should somehow have that close anyway. That's an easy way of just roughing a part out. Now you could make as many of these as you want, and I've been making multiples of every part I've made so far. Usually throwing a few away, keeping a few. Now I can go over to the plane before I trace this out and see if this is the shape, if this is going to look like the shape that I want. At least I know it's symmetrical. Now with the little pattern in there, I can get a rough idea, and I just want it to touch at the top. That would be scale, and it's got to rest on this subflooring, of course. So that's close to being, and the pilot obviously would, I don't know why I'm worrying about this, the pilot can't even see the handle for crying out loud. But anyway, it's always nice to try to make it as prototypical as possible. If we're real lucky, we'll get the bottom piece of the seat out of the same piece of wood, and it'll also have a similar curve in it. Now I can use the same pattern and just get a little bit of an idea. It's a lot easier to do it with a piece of paper. Now of course this will have a curve in it. Okay, so wherever I have that little piece of wood that's left over, it's just going to make it. I didn't plan it this way, by the way. I know nobody will believe that though, but if in doubt, when you're doing a little project like this, always make the parts a little bit oversized. You can always trim them down. Let's see what it'll be when this part gets connected. I've just lost half of the seat here. When this gets connected, I'm going to have to obviously put this curve in. I used the original part. It just wound up being too short, so I just took some thin wood to make this piece. 'Cause what I want to do is I want to finish this seat and maybe get the paint on it tonight, so that tomorrow I can install these parts. That'll be the end of these. Now what I wanted to do also, oops, I wanted to put a little triangular brace in here. That's pretty prototypical of warbirds of that era. And I want to put that little, the headrest piece up here. I want to lay this out. Piece of 64th plywood. Now I need to have a way of holding this while I put a coat of that flat aircraft, I don't know what we'd call it, flat paint, but I'm not going to do it in the same color as the zinc chromate. I want to do it just one color different. That's why I bought 3 different shades of it. This way the seat will kind of stand out. It won't look like it's just the same thing. And we have these 2 colors. Who knows what this is? Interior green. Okay, let's try interior green. Now that's probably all I'm going to have time for tonight, but at least I got this ready to dry. And I'll carve that little head piece out and I can let the paint on that dry. And tomorrow I hopefully can assemble all this, get this whole cockpit put together. It's been a lot. There's been a lot of time doing this. A lot of hours. Now just final sand this out to I guess as scale a shape as I can and get a coat of flat black on it. Now today, the little seat dried up real